What is going on, Trident community? Evan from Trident Incorporated here, back at you with another video talking about the sports card hobby. And today we are going to be going over the pros and cons of buying Bowman U. Now, I want to make a quick distinction. We're not talking about Bowman baseball. We are talking about Bowman football and Bowman basketball. So we are not talking about Bowman baseball. That is a completely different thing. We're talking about Bowman U, which is the collegiate cards, your Alabamas, your Georgias, your Clemsons. Those cards of those players are going to be in these sets. Caitlin Clark for a while, Shador Sanders right now. Those are the types of cards we are talking about. So we are not covering Bowman baseball, but there is some interesting pros and cons, I think, to buying Bowman U, and I am excited to get into them today. But without further ado, let's get right into them as we start off with our first pro. And the first pro is it's the first collegiate licensed cards of potential stars. Guys like Caleb Williams, for a while there, Bowman was actually unlicensed, and they finally just recently got the licensing to have the likeness and stuff of the colleges and everything on the card. So guys like Caleb Williams now have USC and Shador Sanders, Colorado, and stuff like that. So Caitlin Clark with Iowa, there's a lot of opportunity there. So it's the first licensed collegiate cards of these big names who are going to go to the NFL or NBA or WNBA draft and have a great career potentially. So I think that is pretty cool, especially those Bowman first. Speaking of Bowman first, that brings us to our other pro here, which is I think you can buy Bowman first at a pretty cheap rate, especially if they're not a huge name going into the season. If you take a flyer on somebody and you just buy a certain dude and he ends up breaking out, take Joe Burrow, for example. I don't know if Bowman U was exactly around when Joe Burrow was I don't believe it was when Joe Burrow was playing for the LSU Tigers, but entering his final season at LSU, he was not like a highly sought after prospect or quarterback. And he just did so well in his senior season that it was like undeniable. This dude had talent. Now, I mean, if there would have been a Bowman first available for Joe Burrow when he first came in and you bought that card, well, you were probably making some sort of profit there, reselling that at some point. So I do think that the profit that you sell it for can make sense, basically, especially, like I said, if you take a chance on a guy who is maybe not as highly sought after at the beginning of the season. You take a swing, and I think it could work out. Another pro is around NFL draft time. The value goes up because it's the only card of that player for right now. And I say right now, pretty loosely. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But with the NFL draft, right, I'm just basing this because I know football the best, I think. So I'm basing this right now on that. Caleb Williams. Okay, the only Caleb Williams cards that were around the NFL draft were either unlicensed, like Sage or Leaf, or it was Bowman U. So when those cards come out and he gets drafted, well, what are you going to be looking to buy? You're going to be looking to buy Caleb Williams, likely Bowman U cards, because there isn't going to be any Chicago Bears cards yet. That's going to be the best bet you have. So I do think there's value there as well, and the value around the NFL draft or NBA or WNBA, whatever it may be, that probably is one of the highest values that those cards are going to get. Probably because eventually, the cards are going to get pro unis, which unfortunately brings us to the cons of this. And it's just that it will be the only card of that player for a certain period of time and a very limited amount of time, because eventually it's going to come out with the pro unis, whether it's Donruss, whether it's Score. I know Score typically doesn't always have the pro uniform. But whether it's whatever it may be, Prism, then you have Donruss Optic, and then you have all these other brands coming out with it. And once they all come out with the rookie cards of Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels in a pro uniform, it does kind of diminish the value of, even if you have a first Bowman, it does kind of unfortunately diminish that value of that card just a little bit. So I would suggest if you have a first Bowman, sell it probably around the draft, right, of whatever league that is, whatever player that is. Hopefully they get picked pretty high. There's a lot of hype around them, but because if you decide to wait, I'm not sure how much more it's going to go up in terms of resale value. And also, speaking of resale value, that brings us to our other con. The resale value of the Bowman first aren't like baseball. Okay, it's not like baseball because look, baseball that's a professional card. That is a professional card that has a MLB team on it. So when you're looking at Juan Soto's first Bowman or Ronald Acuna's first Bowman, look, that has the Braves and the Nationals on it. You know, like that has that on it. That is a pro card, and it's their first professional card. Technically, the Bowman U is not a professional card. Technically, it's still a collegiate card. So that is where it differs, right? Baseball, the first Bowmans are much more valuable and much more highly sought after because that technically is their first pro uniform card. Whereas with Bowman U, whoever it may be, unfortunately, that's just not the case. So I do think that is a downfall of Bowman U. It is still a fun rip, but I think it's a downfall of it. And the last con I have is, look, a lot of these players that you're buying or looking to buy, a lot of them aren't just going to work out. They're just simply not going to work out. Look, first, but I want to bring it back to baseball for a second here. First Bowmans are produced for a lot of people, right? For a lot of players. And there's only a few that make it to the major leagues. And then there's only even more few that have success in the major leagues. So there's a lot of guys who have first Bowmans in baseball, which would be valuable, but they never made it that far. They never made it to the MLB, or if they did, they weren't a very productive player. So I do think that knowing that when you go into this, if you're buying a first Bowman of a college football player or a college basketball player, whatever it may be, knowing that there's a potential that they may not even reach that height, right? Especially if first Bowman is their first card. So that is pretty early on in their career as well. A lot can happen. I think understanding that is pretty important when getting into potentially buying and selling Bowman U stuff. So like I said, a lot of these players you buy just simply won't work out as well as you'd hope. But some will. I'm sure some will. I mean, look, Shedeur Sanders is a name. Travis Hunter too. Their cards right now are probably pretty valuable. They're probably going to be even more valuable around the NFL draft when everybody's talking about them, right? There's a lot of hype. That's the time to sell because the more you go on, they get pro uniform cards. It won't be as valuable. Just in my opinion, it won't be as valuable. But let me know what you guys think about Bowman U. I personally like it. I think it's pretty neat to see these guys or girls in their college uniforms and get the first Bowman. Even though it's not as valuable as baseball, I still think it's pretty cool. That's like their first card basically made by Topps. So I do think it is pretty cool. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts and any pros or cons you have about collecting or buying Bowman U. But thank you all for the support on Trident Inc. on Whatnot. We really appreciate it. Go check out the Trident Inc. store on Whatnot and the Anytime auctions. I can almost guarantee you go to the Anytime auctions, you swipe, and you're going to find something where you're like, man, I got to have that. I can almost guarantee you there is a lot of heat in that store. But check out the Anytime auctions and get those bids in. But thank you all for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and keep collecting.